what I want to talk about in this specific video is Indian people and anti-Black racism specifically. So whether this is within the country of India, or whether this is when Indian people immigrate to any part of the world, whether it be on the African continent, in North America, South America, wherever, Indian people have, and again, I'm not saying every single Indian person, but I'm talking about Indian people generally, our society, our culture, the belief systems that Indian people hold, etc. Indian people are extremely, extremely racist, especially towards Black people. And if you take a Black person who has been around Indian people for any period of time, Black people pick up on this. It's something that is, this is not a secret. Whether you're talking to, say African students who study in India, which there are African students who are there, or whether you're talking about, say, Kenyans. There's a large population of Kenya that are Indian people that have immigrated to that country, or South Africa, or Canada, or, the United States, whatever. But Black people pick up on Indian people's racism because it is quite apparent. It's something that that is there. It's obvious. So I'm just going to give you an example of me, my family, and the Indian people in South Africa. When I grew up there, I spent the first 12 years of my life under apartheid. So we had servants, maids, cooks, gardeners, etc. And all of these people were Africans. They were Black people. And all of the Indians in South Africa had servants. Okay, they were all Black. Now, how were these servants treated? They were treated as subhuman. They were not considered to be human beings with feelings. They drank out of different cups. So Indian people would not share their table with the servants, who were an integral part of their household. They took care of their children. They drove them everywhere. They cooked for them. But they had to eat off of separate dishes. They could not sit on the furniture. They, say, for example, when we left our home and we traveled, so we lived in Pietermaritzburg, we traveled to Durban on the weekends, holidays, whatever. Our maid would come with us. She was not allowed to sleep on or sit on our furniture or sleep on our furniture, so she had to sleep on the floor. These are things that all Indian people did in South Africa. And now I'm just talking about South Africa. I'm not talking about, say, when Indian people immigrate to other countries. But this is true even in first generation Indians. Because, say, if an Indian person had to marry a Black person, 9 times out of 10, that Indian person's family is going to completely disown the Indian person who married a Black person. Now, Indian people generally, they want Indian people to marry within they want Indian people to marry other Indian people, and then they even go into they want, the same caste, and they even have subcastes and all of this stuff. So, but if an Indian person marries a white person, or say an Asian person, it's not considered to be as heinous of an act as if an Indian person married a Black person. So this can be tied to the caste system because, like I mentioned in my previous video, Indian people are racist towards other Indian people. And some of this is based on skin color. It's not entirely based on skin color, but there is a factor that is, that is apparent in that. So Ava DuVernay made a movie called Origin, and it's based on Isabel Wilkerson's book Caste, which somebody just pointed out. And it's very difficult for me to talk about these very heavy topics in 10 minutes. So I can't cover everything, but Indian people are inherently racist as a culture and as a society. And then within that racism, there is a hierarchy. So yes, while an Indian society might be racist towards Western people, Western culture, white people, etc. Just like Vivek Ramaswamy making that comment about how, he made all these disparaging comments about, Americans. And he was talking about white Americans, how they're not as smart and blah, blah, blah. These are not uncommon things that Indian people say within themselves. I have been privy to these conversations in whether it's, say a friend situation or families or extended families or just in my Indian community. These are very common beliefs that most all Indian people will espouse. They will say things like, well, white people have no culture. Their food is horrible. They just go on and on and on. But when it comes to Black people specifically, Indian people have extremely racist views about Black people. And it doesn't matter how nice this Black person is, how educated they might be. None of those things matter. And that's why I say that a lot of Indian people, they align themselves with a very far right-wing kind of Trump ideology. So you might take somebody from, say, America, who is a Trumpster, and they espouse all these very racist views. And you could take an Indian person, and in many respects, those views are going to align because Indian people generally tend to hold very racist views. It goes back to the caste system, yes, but it also ties into other aspects. Because as I pointed out before, there are the so-called untouchables in India, and Indian people are racist towards them as well. So this is all a very, these are complicated things, and I'm just trying to do my best to share these ideas because we are in terrible times right now in the United States and in the world generally. So I guess Indian people, if you guys want to come for me, come for me. I am not saying anything that's untrue. This is the truth. And
hello, guys, and welcome to the Joy Report, where we get an outsider's view with an insider's clarity. The internet is buzzing after a video surfaced of an Indian woman speaking openly about a subject many tend to avoid. In the clip, she delivers a bone-chilling truth, addressing the issue of anti-Black sentiments among Indian communities across the globe. Her words have stirred conversation, especially in places where Indians and Black communities have lived side by side for generations. Before I proceed, all credit goes to the creator of this video. When we talk about racism, the conversation often centers around Western societies, but prejudice is not limited to one group or one geography. In fact, across African countries like Kenya, South Africa, Tanzania, and Uganda, many Africans have shared experiences of being looked down upon or treated unfairly by segments of the Indian population. This is not a blanket statement about every individual, but it is a reality many say cannot be ignored. Historically, Indians migrated to Africa during the colonial era, often brought in as laborers, merchants, or clerks under British rule. Over time, these communities established themselves economically, sometimes creating a visible class divide between themselves and local Africans. This divide, combined with cultural separation, created tensions that still exist today. Many Africans feel that some Indian communities see themselves as superior, refusing to integrate fully and often harboring stereotypes about Black people. In Kenya, for example, stories often surface of Indians who run businesses but treat African workers or customers with less respect. In South Africa, apartheid-era laws have categorized Indians differently from Africans, which created complex dynamics. Some argue that this history allowed anti-Black attitudes to grow unchecked within Indian communities. These attitudes, unfortunately, still show up today in social interactions, hiring practices, and even within family discussions. At the same time, it's important to recognize that not every Indian shares these beliefs. Just like any community, these are individuals who work hard to build solidarity, friendships, and alliances across social lines. There are countless stories of Indians and Africans standing together politically, socially, and even personally in family ties through marriage. However, the criticism that these women raised was that too often, silence or denial surrounds the existence of anti-Blackness in her own community. Her words struck a nerve because she wasn't speaking as an outsider accusing others. She was speaking from within, holding up a mirror to her own people. Some praised her courage, saying that acknowledgement is the first step to healing deep divides. Others, however, felt that she was being unfair, painting her entire community with one brush and ignoring the discrimination Indians themselves sometimes face, both in Africa and abroad. This conversation is uncomfortable but necessary. If society are to move forward, then addressing uncomfortable truth is part of the process. Anti-Blackness is not just a Western problem, nor is it limited to one group. It can show up in many communities, including those who themselves have faced discrimination. The big question now is, what happens next? Will conversations like this spark reflection and change, or will they deepen divides by creating defensiveness? The answer depends on how both communities, Indian and Black, choose to engage with one another. So what do you all think? Do you think the Indian woman was right to call out her own community on anti-Blackness? And have you personally witnessed tension between Indian and Black communities in your country? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. I would love to keep this discussion going. Otherwise, that's it from me. I also have a playlist on Fafo videos, and if you enjoy such kind of content, please click up here and enjoy. Also, consider subscribing, liking and sharing because it helps me grow my channel and helps YouTube recommend this video to a wider audience. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and until the next time, the Joy Report out.